The soft hush of rain had just passed, leaving a shimmering glaze over the cobblestone streets and winding trails. In the southern hills of England, nestled between sweeping meadows and ancient woodlands, the afternoon air hummed with the scent of moss, petals, and wet bark. It was the perfect kind of quiet that arrives after a gentle spring shower, tranquil, yet alive with nature's breath. Elora Rowan had been wandering for a while. She wasn't in a rush, there was no meeting to attend, no errand that demanded urgency. She had come here purely to escape, to find space from the clutter of screens and schedules. Her boots crunched lightly against the gravel as she stepped through the old park gates, her navy raincoat glistening faintly under the filtered sunlight that poked through the drifting clouds. She paused and breathed in deeply. The air was sweet and earthy, and the faint rustle of birds above set a calm rhythm in her chest. It was a day made for wandering. The park named Rosemere had always been a bit of a hidden gem, known mostly by locals and artists who came here for the azaleas when they bloomed. Elora had discovered it years ago while chasing a childhood rumor about a hidden garden where deer spoke in dreams. Of course, she never found such a place as a child, but the story had always lingered in the back of her imagination. Now, with her umbrella tucked beneath her arm and the whisper of breeze in her hair, the memory resurfaced like a forgotten melody. She followed a narrow dirt path winding through low hedges and budding camellia bushes. To her left, a row of stone benches sat empty, dappled with droplets, while to her right stretched a small brook, now swollen with rainwater, its current gurgling playfully over smooth pebbles. Elora let her pace slow until she was barely moving. She wanted to listen. Really listen. She could hear a robin's chirp echoing faintly above. The wind brushed gently against the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a faint bell, perhaps from the old chapel on the hill, chimed a late afternoon hour. Then came the real magic. A deer emerged from behind a holly tree just ahead. Not startled. Not alarmed. Just present. It was young, with a soft amber coat and dark, intelligent eyes. The creature met her gaze with a kind of unspoken understanding. Elora didn't move. She only watched, and in those silent seconds, it felt as if time paused entirely. There was no fear in the deer's face, only curiosity. A breeze passed between them, carrying the subtle scent of wet grass and something else, something ancient and faintly floral. After a few moments, the deer dipped its head and stepped back into the trees, vanishing as quietly as it had appeared. Elora exhaled, realizing she'd been holding her breath. It was then that she recalled the words her grandmother once whispered before sleep. Magic never left the world, it just waits in the quiet, for someone willing to listen. Further down the trail, Elora came across a fork in the path. To the right, the terrain rose gently uphill toward a patch of golden birch trees. The sunlight shimmered there like a curtain of light. But to the left, the path dipped into the denser woods, where the canopy had grown thicker and the ground was coated in fallen leaves. She chose the left. She always did. The deeper she ventured, the more the noise of the outside world faded. Soon, she could no longer hear distant cars or chatter. Even the brook had vanished behind her. Here, there was only the soft crunch of damp leaves and the rhythmic beat of her own breath. Then she saw it. A wrought iron gate stood half hidden behind ivy and blooming wisteria. It was delicate and aged, the kind of gate that belonged in fairy tales. Beyond it stretched what looked like a forgotten garden, overgrown but beautiful, with wild roses climbing up the stone arches and azaleas bursting in every hue of pink and coral. She pushed the gate open with a gentle creak. Inside, the garden opened into a circular grove. At the center stood a stone bench, and beside it, a bird bath brimming with fresh rainwater. Everything felt impossibly still, like the air itself was holding its breath. She stepped inside, and as her foot crossed the threshold, a soft breeze swept through the grove just enough to make the petals tremble. "Illyra," someone said. She spun around, heart leaping, but no one was there. The wind stilled. She looked again. Nothing but trees. But something inside her shifted, a quiet certainty that she was not alone, not in a fearful way, but in the way one feels the presence of old friends, invisible yet familiar. Perhaps it was only memory. Or perhaps the rumors from her childhood weren't just stories after all. With the rain gently returning, Illyra found her way back to the trail, the scent of flowers and old magic clinging to her senses. She walked slowly, her hand brushing against leaves and branches as she passed, not wanting to disturb the moment too quickly. In the distance, a small cottage cafe glowed warm behind fogged-up windows. And as the first drops of rain kissed her cheeks once more, she smiled. There was still tea ahead. And something more. The cottage cafe was closer than Illyra had remembered. Or perhaps it was the drizzle that made her steps quicken. Either way, the warm glow behind the frosted windows grew larger with each turn in the path, like a beacon in the soft gray haze of the afternoon. She entered the cafe to the sound of a little brass bell above the door. It was cozy inside. Wood-paneled walls lined with mismatched paintings, a fire crackling in a stone hearth, and the inviting aroma of Earl Grey, orange zest, and fresh scones. A few patrons were seated quietly, lost in their own serene worlds, heads bent over books, couples whispering near the fireplace. Illyra took a seat by the window. Her raincoat, now slightly damp, steamed gently beside her as she cupped a warm mug of tea in both hands. Outside, the rain softened the world into watercolor. But her thoughts were still caught in the garden. That voice, the way the air shifted when she stepped through the gate, it was as if the garden had been waiting for her. She closed her eyes briefly. "Illyra," the voice had said. It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't even eerie. It was familiar. Gentle, like the way her mother used to say her name when waking her from dreams as a child. She could still hear it. When she opened her eyes again, a figure was standing outside the cafe, across the path, just beyond the line of trees. A man. He wore a long coat, almost Victorian in style, with boots that looked like they belonged to another century. His face was hard to make out in the mist, but he stood perfectly still, watching the cafe. Watching her. And then, just as quickly as she noticed him, he was gone. Startled but strangely calm, Illyra finished her tea and wrapped her coat around her once more. Curiosity tugged at her stronger than caution. She stepped out of the cafe, letting the rain fall softly on her face. The mist had thickened, but the trail was still visible. She followed it, past the fork again, deeper than she had gone before. The iron gate was still ajar, the garden beyond more vibrant than before. The rain seemed not to touch it, the flowers still held their colors as if blooming under a private sky. She stepped inside. Only this time, the path was different. Where once the garden was circular and open, now stone steps led downward. They hadn't been there earlier. Covered in moss and half hidden by ivy, the stairs descended into a hollow beneath the roots of an old willow tree. Her boots made no sound as she walked. At the bottom of the steps was a small courtyard, half forgotten, but not abandoned. A stone pedestal stood in the center, and upon it, an object wrapped in dark velvet cloth. Illyra hesitated, then reached out. Unwrapping the cloth, she revealed an old mirror. The frame was made of silver and etched with floral patterns, faded but beautiful. The glass, though dusty, reflected her image with uncanny clarity. But something was off. In the reflection, she was not alone. Standing behind her just at the edge of the frame was the man she had seen near the cafe. Still in his long coat, still watching. She spun around. No one. She looked back. The reflection was empty again. Her breath caught. The mirror now showed something new, a garden, but not the one she stood in. This one was wilder, filled with glowing blue flowers and a sky painted in dusk. In its center stood a stone arch, old and broken, yet pulsing faintly with light. A whisper echoed in the courtyard. Return what was kept. Illyra's heart thudded. It wasn't fear that filled her, it was recognition. This place, this mirror, the whisper. None of it was random. Pieces of dreams she had long forgotten stirred in her memory. As a child, she had drawn arches like that one. Her notebook had been filled with flowers that didn't exist in the waking world. Someone had shown them to her. Long ago. Rain began to fall again, harder now, but Illyra didn't flinch. She wrapped the mirror in its cloth, careful and deliberate, and placed it in her satchel. Then she stepped away from the pedestal, feeling the ground pulse faintly beneath her feet. When she climbed the stairs and left the hidden courtyard, the garden behind her seemed to blur and shift. The gate creaked closed by itself as she crossed back into the trail. And though the rain continued, it felt warmer now. The path ahead curved into woods she had never noticed before, lined with ancient oaks whose roots reached across the trail like sleeping serpents. She was no longer just exploring. She was being guided. The forest path ahead grew darker, not from the time of day, but from the thickening canopy of ancient trees that arched like cathedral ceilings over Illyra's head. With the mirror now secured in her satchel, Every step she took echoed with a strange sense of purpose. Though she had not walked this way before, the path felt oddly familiar. Like stepping into a recurring dream. A faint golden glow filtered through the treetops, not sunlight exactly, softer, more diffused, as if the trees themselves were generating the light. The rain had lessened, falling now in lazy drops that tapped gently against the leaves. Her boots were caked with mud, but she didn't mind. Everything about this felt meaningful. A wooden sign stood ahead, so old the letters were barely legible. The Keeper's Hollow. Illyra traced the carved words with her fingertips. The wood felt warm. She remembered something, an old folk tale her grandmother once read to her. In the heart of Rosemere dwells the Keeper, one who guards the threads between seasons and memories. Only those who belong may enter, and only those who've forgotten may see. Back then, it was just a bedtime story. Now, the words pulsed through her bones. She followed the sign down a narrow trail, where the air grew still and thick with scent, wet bark, lavender, and something floral she couldn't quite place. At the trail's end stood an enormous willow tree, its branches trailing like curtains all the way to the mossy ground. Unlike the rest of the forest, the ground here was dry. Peaceful. As if protected. Nestled beneath the willow's outstretched roots was a cottage. Small and round, with a roof made of living vines and walls of stone worn smooth by time. A single lantern hung outside, flickering faintly in the soft gloom. Illyra hesitated. Then she stepped closer, and the door creaked open on its own. Inside, the cottage was warm. A fireplace burned with blue-tinged flames. Shelves lined every wall, overflowing with jars, scrolls, dried herbs, and curious trinkets, keys with no locks, feathers with writing etched into their shafts, stones that hummed softly when touched. And at the center of the room sat a woman. Her hair was long and silver, flowing like the willow branches outside. Her eyes were a pale green that seemed to shift like leaves in the wind. She wore robes of moss and moon thread, stitched with tiny blossoms that seemed to bloom as Illyra looked. "You've returned," the woman said without looking up. Illyra blinked. I don't think we've met." "You don't remember, not yet. But you've been here before." The woman finally lifted her gaze. "You brought back the mirror." Illyra slowly removed the wrapped mirror from her satchel and placed it on the table. The woman's hands, though aged, moved with the grace of someone who had repeated this ritual 1,000 times. "This mirror," she said, unwrapping it carefully, "was crafted to hold the memory of this land. Of every bloom, every passing soul, every unspoken thought carried by wind and root. Long ago, it was lost. Hidden to protect what it knew." Illyra frowned. "But, why would I have it?" The woman looked at her kindly. "Because, child, you were born beneath the first bloom of the moon azalea. A rare flower that only opens when the veil between dreams and waking thins. You are of this place though you were taken far from it. A low hum filled the cottage, and the mirror began to glow faintly, showing shifting images, an older version of Rosemere, vibrant and strange. Giant deer with silver antlers walked beside children. Lanterns floated above lakes that sparkled with starlight. A girl Illyra stood among them, laughing. She stumbled back. That's not possible. That's not real. But it was, the woman said softly. And it can be again. The fire flared in the hearth, casting flickering shadows across the cottage. The woman reached for a scroll and unraveled it before Illyra. It was a map of Rosemere, but far larger than any park map. It showed paths she'd never seen, towers that no longer existed, and places labeled only in old runes. One spot pulsed faintly with light. The gate of Tytherin, the woman said. A sacred place where the veil is thinnest. Where memory becomes form. Illyra's breath caught. That gate. I saw it. In the mirror. The woman nodded. It is awakening. As are you. Illyra felt the weight of something ancient in her chest, stirring for the first time in decades. As if a seed planted in her long ago was finally breaking soil. But why now? She whispered. Because the seasons are shifting. Rosemere is beginning to forget itself. Its creatures, its stories, they are fading. Unless someone remembers. Outside, a gust of wind blew through the willow, shaking loose silver petals that drifted past the window like snow. You must go to the gate, the woman said. Before the next full moon. Illyra looked down at the mirror. In its reflection, her eyes shimmered with a faint glow. The same glow she saw in the deer's eyes. The same light that pulsed in the old arches of her dreams. She wasn't just visiting Rosemere. She was a part of it. And something or someone had been waiting all this time. Illyra stepped out of the willow-crowned cottage as the wind carried a chorus of whispers through the leaves. The air had changed. It wasn't just cooler, it was denser, charged with the weight of unseen things. The mirror, now glowing faintly in her satchel, pulsed in rhythm with her footsteps, as if guiding her toward a destiny she could no longer outrun. The old woman, the keeper, though she never gave her name, had told her where to begin. Follow the stream that runs behind the grove. Watch for the silver heron. And most importantly, do not stray from the path, even if it calls to you. Illyra walked with purpose, her boots leaving soft prints on the damp moss. Behind the cottage, nestled in a curve of ferns, ran a brook as clear as glass. Moonlight, though it wasn't night, danced upon its surface. A heron, almost shimmering, stood in the shallows. As her eyes met its luminous ones, it turned silently and began to walk upstream. She followed. Each turn in the path revealed strange wonders. Trees with hollow trunks that echoed like chimes when the wind passed through. Mushrooms that glowed faintly blue, lighting the path like lanterns. Once, She passed beneath an arch of twisted vines, and as she did, it felt as though she had walked through a memory, not her own. Flashes of a child's laughter, hands weaving garlands, a fox curled asleep beneath a tree. It was as if the forest itself remembered her. After an hour of walking, or perhaps more, time here was slippery. Allura came upon a clearing. At its center stood a stone monolith, covered in ivy and moss. Symbols carved deep into its surface glimmered faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Around it were 7 large stones forming a perfect circle. The heron stopped at the edge of the clearing and vanished, fading into mist. As Allura stepped between the stones, the wind ceased entirely. The silence was absolute. And then the monolith spoke. Not in words, but in memory. She saw herself barefoot and younger, kneeling before the stone, hands pressed against its surface, whispering a name she couldn't now recall. Around her, other children stood in a circle, each holding a candle of wildflower wax. Above them, the stars danced in swirling patterns. The vision flickered. Now, she stood alone. A voice rose from within the stone, low and resonant. To cross into memory, you must give what was taken. Allura trembled. I don't know what that means. The voice replied, what is your name? She blinked. Allura Rowan. The name you were given, or the name you chose? A sudden ache filled her chest. There had been another name once forgotten, buried beneath years of noise and reason. It hovered just beyond reach, like a dream remembered only in feeling. Her knees buckled slightly as she stepped forward. One hand reached out, touching the stone. The carvings flared to life. Flashes overwhelmed her vision. A silver stag bounding through starlit meadows. A girl standing on water. A book of leaves that turned themselves. A name whispered by firelight, Azalea. Her breath caught. It wasn't a name she had heard before, yet it was hers. I am Azalea, she whispered aloud. The clearing responded. The circle of stones glowed. The moss withdrew from the monolith. The air itself shimmered. Then you may pass. A ring of light formed at her feet, and the ground beneath her softened, shifting into a spiral path of stardust and root. The center of the clearing peeled away like petals, revealing a staircase made of woven branches and bone-white stone descending into darkness. Allura hesitated only a moment. Then she stepped down. The descent was not steep, but it felt eternal. There were no torches, yet the walls shimmered with veins of opalescent light. Murals unfolded along the passage, scenes of ancient festivals, of wild creatures dancing with humans, of gates opening beneath moonlight. And always, always, the same symbol etched into every panel, a circle within a triangle, surrounded by feathers. Finally, she emerged into an underground chamber. It was vast. A domed cavern where roots hung like chandeliers and shallow water reflected the light in glittering waves. At the far end stood the gate of Tytherin. It was not made of stone, nor wood, but something that shimmered between solid and shadow. A massive arch formed of braided vines, star metal, and what looked like threads of memory itself, each strand glowing with different hues: sapphire, amber, emerald, and pale silver. Beneath it, a pedestal. Upon it, a book bound in bark and silver thread. Illyra approached. The mirror in her satchel buzzed. As she touched the book, a voice rose again, not the stones, but something older. Azalea of Rosemere, keeper of the bloom, the gate recognizes you. Tears welled in her eyes. She hadn't known what she was searching for. But this felt like coming home. The gate shimmered, its light wrapping around her like a soft wind. Within it, she could see glimpses of other worlds, not other places, but other times, versions of Rosemere, past and future, dreams once shared and forgotten. A child ran through meadows long gone. A woman with her eyes stood beneath stars she did not yet know. Voices called out in languages that echoed in her blood. Am I meant to enter? She whispered. Not yet. The voice came not from the gate, but from behind her. She turned. There stood the man from the cafe. His coat was the same, but his eyes now glowed the same silver green as the keeper's. You brought the mirror, he said. And your name. But to pass through, you must first remember the truth of why it was taken. Who are you? She asked. He smiled gently. Once, I was called the guide. Now, I am simply what remains of memory. And I will walk with you, if you choose. The gate pulsed again, but did not open. Illyra took a breath, then nodded. And side by side, they left the chamber, the path back winding not toward the surface but deeper, into the hidden heart of Rosemere. They descended in silence, the path beneath their feet shifting subtly with each step, as though the forest itself rearranged to accommodate their presence. Illyra could no longer tell where roots ended and stone began. The walls pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Every few paces, she would glance at the guide, who walked beside her without sound, his eyes distant but alert. This place, she murmured. It doesn't feel real. It is memory, he replied softly, and memory is always real, more than we allow ourselves to believe. They entered a vast chamber, carved not by hands but time. The ceiling vanished into darkness, and the floor stretched into a still lake that reflected not their bodies but their thoughts. As Illyra gazed down, her reflection shifted, twisting from her current self into a child wearing a flower crown, then an older version with a silver circlet and eyes like moonstone. Where are we? She whispered. The guide raised a hand. The time lost hollow. A threshold between what you remember and what you've tried to forget. Every step from here will ask something of you. As they moved forward, stepping onto smooth black stone that jutted over the lake like a pathway, Illyra noticed faint glowing orbs floating above the water. Each one flickered with scenes, some familiar, others unknown. In one orb, she saw a younger version of herself dancing beneath a sky filled with flying lanterns. In another, she stood at the edge of a cliff with a boy whose face she could not recall. The air grew colder. Suddenly, the orbs began to shiver. From the water, something rose. It was not monstrous. Not in the physical sense. But its presence struck fear deep into her bones. A shapeless figure of mist and shadow, it towered silently before them. Where its face should have been was a shifting mask of images, memories long buried. The first forgotten, the guide said calmly. Every traveler of memory must face theirs. The creature moved, not walking but gliding, stopping a breath away from Illyra. Within its body, she saw flashes of a memory she'd worked hard to erase. A girl herself standing in a hallway as two adults argued behind a closed door. She was clutching a stuffed deer, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. No, she whispered. You must face it, the guide said. You must welcome it back, or you will never pass. The creature reached forward, and the memory intensified. The voices behind the door rose into shouts, words she had heard but never processed. You're filling her head with nonsense. She's a child of the old blood. She needs to remember. Illyra stepped back. No. That wasn't real. That was just a story. It was your truth, the creature said, and this time, it spoke in her father's voice. She froze. For a long moment, she wanted to run. But then she looked down into the lake. Her reflection wasn't crying. It was reaching out. Slowly, Illyra placed her palm on the creature's chest. Her hand passed through the mist, but something shifted. The figure dissolved, and where it had been, a single glowing flower bloomed in midair, its petals made of silver and memory. She took it gently. The moment she did, the lake's surface broke open in a quiet ripple, revealing a bridge of woven starlight leading to the other side. Well done, the guide said quietly. You've taken the first step toward remembering who you are. As they walked across the new bridge, the hollow faded behind them, dissolving into mist. On the other side, the landscape was transformed. They emerged into a twilight field where tall grass swayed despite the absence of wind. Towers of glass rose in the distance, their spires humming with quiet music. Strange birds with translucent feathers glided overhead, leaving trails of light behind. This is the archive, the guide said. Where all forgotten things go to wait. Illyra blinked. Archive? Of what? Names. Moments. Songs. Promises never kept. The ones you're meant to find will call to you. They wandered the edge of the field, and as they walked, sounds began to surface, soft melodies, like lullabies in an unfamiliar tongue. At first, they were indistinct. But then one voice rang clearer, sweeter than the others. It was humming a tune Elora hadn't heard in years. A tune her mother used to sing when she was too afraid to sleep. Drawn like a thread tugging at her heart, Elora followed the sound to a small glade. There, sitting cross-legged atop a stone, was a girl. No older than 10, with wild brown hair and eyes that shimmered silver. The girl looked up. Elora. Elora stopped. Who are you? You used to be me, the girl said. Before you chose to forget. The mirror in Elora's satchel burned warm against her side. What do you mean? I held all your questions. All your wonder. All your belief. You gave me away when you were 13, remember? A memory surged. 13 years old. A schoolyard. A friend laughing at her drawings of deer with wings. The decision to grow up and leave that part of herself behind. I didn't mean to. But you did, the girl said, not unkindly. Elora knelt. Can I take you back? The girl smiled. Only if you mean it. Elora opened her arms. The girl leaned forward and touched her forehead to Elora's. Light. Eat. And then the girl vanished absorbed into her. Elora gasped. The air around her seemed brighter, the colors more vivid. She felt whole. The guide approached silently. Now, he said, you are ready for the true gate. Elora stood taller. What lies beyond? The guide looked at her with ancient eyes. Your story. The one you left unfinished. The field of the archive faded behind Elora and the guide as they approached the towering archway known as the true gate of Tytherin. Unlike the ethereal gate she had glimpsed in the garden's mirror, this one was enormous and imposing, carved from stone veined with silver and inscribed with ancient runes that pulsed with a steady heartbeat of power. A low hum vibrated through the air, resonating deep within Elora's chest. She reached out a trembling hand to touch the surface. The runes glowed brighter, reacting to her touch as if recognizing a forgotten kinship. This is where your journey truly begins, the guide said, voice grave. Beyond this gate lies the conflux, a place where all timelines and memories converge. Few have the strength to walk its paths without losing themselves. Elora swallowed her fear and nodded. The mirror in her satchel pulsed with a soothing light, as if lending her courage. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward and pushed against the gate. The world shifted. The stone gate dissolved into cascading light, revealing a realm beyond comprehension. The sky above was a swirling tapestry of stars, nebulae, and celestial ribbons of color, while beneath her feet stretched a pathway made of gleaming crystal that reflected infinite versions of herself. Walking side by side. The conflux was alive. Voices echoed in every direction, whispers of forgotten names, echoes of ancient songs, and fragments of untold stories. Illyra could feel the pulse of every memory, every choice, every dream, and regret that had ever touched her soul. Ahead, a figure awaited. A regal woman draped in robes of starlight and shadow. Her hair flowed like the night sky, studded with shimmering constellations. She held a scepter topped with a glowing bloom, the moon Azalea, radiant and alive. Illyra, the woman intoned, daughter of the first bloom, bearer of the ancient bloodline. You have come far, but the greatest trial lies ahead. Illyra felt the weight of destiny settle upon her shoulders. Who are you? She asked. I am Lyra, the woman said, queen of the conflux, guardian of the ancient knowledge passed down through your lineage. Long ago, your ancestors sealed the power of the moon Azalea within you to protect the realms from falling into shadow. Illyra's heart pounded. Why was I hidden? Why was I made to forget? To keep you safe, Lyra replied. For the forces that seek to corrupt the bloom's power are relentless. But now, the seal weakens. The conflux trembles, and the darkness stirs. Suddenly, the path beneath them rippled, and a shadowy figure emerged from the swirling mists, a tall, imposing presence cloaked in darkness. Its eyes burned with a cold, unyielding fire. The Shadow Warden, Lyra said. He guards the threshold to the bloom's heart. Only one who embraces both light and shadow within can pass. Illyra steeled herself. The warden advanced, and with every step, memories flashed before Illyra's eyes, moments of joy and pain, love and loss, strength and doubt. The battle was not just of body but of spirit. Drawing the mirror from her satchel, Illyra held it aloft. Its surface shimmered, reflecting not just her image but the fullness of her being. I am Azalea, she declared, voice steady. I am Illyra. I am both light and shadow. The mirror radiated brilliant light, enveloping the conflux in a cascade of color. The warden recoiled, then dissolved into the stars. The path cleared. Lyra smiled warmly. Welcome, Keeper. The bloom awakens through you. Illyra stepped forward into the heart of the conflux, where the moon Azalea bloomed eternally, its petals glowing with pure light. The power was hers now. Stepping into the heart of the conflux, Illyra felt the very air vibrate with energy. The moon Azalea, luminescent, delicate yet fierce, floated before her, its petals radiating hues that shifted from silver to deep indigo. It was both alive and timeless, a beacon of hope in a realm where time twisted and memories wove into reality. The Queen Lyra's voice echoed softly in the vast chamber, this bloom is your birthright, Azalea. Through it, you hold the power to mend what has been broken and to awaken what has long slept. Illyra reached out, fingertips brushing the petals. A surge of warmth exploded through her veins, awakening dormant feelings: love, loss, courage, and a piercing clarity. Suddenly, the conflux shifted. The celestial sky darkened, stars dimming, replaced by shadows that crept from the edges. A chill gripped the space, and Illyra instinctively stepped back. "The darkness seeks to claim the bloom's power," Lyra said gravely. "But more than that, it wishes to consume your very soul." Before Illyra could respond, a voice low, cruel, and resonant filled the chamber. "You think you can wield what was never meant for the living." From the shadowed depths emerged a figure clad in midnight robes, eyes glowing with a malevolent crimson. He was taller than the tallest man, his presence swallowing the light around him. "I am Malric, the Shattered King," he declared. "Once ruler of these lands before the bloom was sealed away, before the conflux took its form. I was betrayed, cast into the void between worlds. But now, with you here, my time has come." Illyra's heart pounded. She knew this moment would come, but nothing prepared her for the sheer weight of Malric's presence. Lyra raised her scepter, its light cutting through the darkness. "You will not prevail, Malric. The bloom guards the balance." Malric laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "Balance is a lie. Power is the only truth." Illyra clenched her fists, feeling the bloom pulse stronger, responding to her will. She realized the fight was not just external, it was a test of her identity, her connection to the ancient lineage she had once denied. Suddenly, the chamber fractured. Memories spilled like broken glass, visions of wars long past, betrayals, and sacrifices. Illyra saw herself as a warrior queen, clad in armor woven from moonlight, leading armies of spectral stag riders across misted fields. Her breath caught. Was this her past? Malric lunged forward, shadows swirling like serpents. Illyra raised the mirror, its surface blazing with reflected light. The two forces collided, creating waves of energy that rippled through the conflux. As they battled, the chamber walls morphed into scenes from Illyra's life, her childhood, the day she was taken from Rosemere, the loss of her memories. Each scene was a thread in the tapestry of her existence, and she realized she had to reclaim them all to wield the bloom's full power. With a cry, Illyra summoned the strength within. The petals of the moon Azalea unfolded, releasing a burst of radiant energy that enveloped Malric. The shadows screamed and recoiled, dissolving into nothingness. The chamber fell silent. Lyra smiled gently. "You have faced the first trial and emerged stronger. But the path ahead is long, and many echoes remain." Illyra nodded, feeling both exhaustion and renewed determination. "Where do I go now?" she asked. "To the Hall of Whispers," Lyra answered. "There, you will learn the secrets of your bloodline and the sacrifices made to protect this world." As Illyra prepared to leave, a soft rustling caught her attention. From the shadows stepped a figure, a young man with eyes as blue as the deepest ocean and a smile tinged with both warmth and sorrow. "I am Kalen," he said quietly. "I have awaited your return." Illyra's heart skipped a beat. Somehow, she knew their destinies were intertwined. Together, they stepped toward the next chapter of their journey, the moon Azalea's light guiding their way through the shifting mists of time. Illyra and Kaelin stepped through the shimmering portal into the Hall of Whispers, a sacred place nestled deep within the heart of the conflux, where countless memories and ancient promises were woven into the very fabric of the air. The walls weren't built of stone or timber, but formed from threads of soft light and endless murmurs, rippling like a living tapestry. Around them, shadowy figures drifted, echoes of souls long past, their laughter, their secrets, their sighs lingering in the space like ghosts of forgotten dreams. Every step Illyra took seemed to touch a story, a vow, a fragment of time lost to the ages. Kaelin's hand brushed gently against Illyra's arm, his gaze deep with empathy and strength. "We will uncover what you have long forgotten," he said softly. "But be warned, not all truths are easy to face." A small glow flickered before them, revealing a radiant sprite with flowing hair that shimmered like woven sunlight. Her voice rose in a haunting song, weaving words both comforting and mysterious. "Keeper of souls, bearer of lines. Open the gate of endless times. Between the shadows and the light, truth awakens in the night." Illyra felt warmth spread through her chest, as if an ancient power within her had been stirred awake. The song was a message from her ancestors, the protectors of the moon Azalea's sacred power, who had guarded it through endless cycles of light and dark. Suddenly, a stone table emerged, carved with intricate symbols and resting atop a pedestal bathed in silver glow. Upon it lay a heavy tome bound in bark and silver thread, its pages etched with living images that shifted and breathed. Kaelin carefully opened the book, and as the pages turned on their own, vivid scenes unfolded, tales of Illyra's bloodline stretching back through centuries. From queens who commanded the elements to warriors who battled shadow beasts, their legacy was one of sacrifice, courage, and unyielding devotion. Illyra's eyes widened as she saw herself in the final pages, a figure clad in moonlit armor, standing atop a hill bathed in dawn's first light, clutching the moon Azalea. Her gaze was fierce, determined, filled with a strength she felt but had yet to fully claim. Suddenly, that image was swallowed by darkness, a massive shadow looming, with eyes like burning coals and a grin sharp as broken glass. "That shadow," Kaelin murmured, "is Malric. Once a guardian of this realm, now its greatest threat. Betrayed and cast away, he waits to reclaim what he lost." A tremor shook the Hall of Whispers, the walls flickering and reshaping into a dense, foreboding forest, where twisted branches clawed at the sky and shadows slithered just beyond sight. "This is the Darkwood," Kaelin said, voice heavy with warning. "Malric's refuge. To break his curse, we must venture into its depths and confront what lies within." A shiver ran down Illyra's spine, but her resolve hardened. This was the path she was destined to walk. Before leaving, she drew the silver mirror from her satchel, not merely a reflection of the present, but a key to unraveling fractured memories. Kaelin touched the mirror reverently. "This artifact will guide us, but it demands courage and clarity. Only those pure of heart and strong of will can wield its power." Together, they stepped into the shadowed forest, where silence was heavy and the air thick with unseen eyes watching, waiting. Though darkness surrounded them, the moon Azalea's light within Illyra's heart glowed steadily, a beacon cutting through the blackness, promising hope in the face of despair. Hand in hand, they journeyed deeper into the dark wood, ready to face the trials that would shape their destiny. The thick canopy of the dark wood closed above Illyra and Callan, swallowing the fading light like a ravenous beast. The air was heavy, dense with the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves, while distant sounds whispered soft, indecipherable murmurs that brushed past their ears like fleeting shadows. Illyra tightened her grip on the silver mirror, its cool surface pulsing faintly in response to the tension around them. The path ahead was tangled with gnarled roots and thorny brambles, twisting and turning in unnatural patterns, as if the forest itself sought to confuse and trap any who dared enter. Callan's voice broke the silence, low and steady. "This forest remembers. It holds the fears and regrets of every soul who has walked here. To move forward, you must face the shadows within your own heart." Illyra swallowed hard, feeling a tremor ripple through her. The darkness seemed to seep not only from the woods but from somewhere deep inside her, old wounds she had tried to bury, doubts she refused to confront. As they ventured deeper, the whispering grew louder, transforming into clear voices she recognized yet could not place. "Why do you run, Azalea? Do you fear the truth? Your past is not your prison." Illyra's knees wobbled, and suddenly, the ground beneath her feet gave way. She fell backward, landing softly in a shallow pool of water that shimmered with an eerie, iridescent glow. Callan was instantly at her side, pulling her up. But the moment she rose, the pool rippled, and her reflection twisted, showing not her face, but a series of fragmented memories. A childhood home shrouded in mist. A locked door behind which muffled cries echoed. A small hand clutching a faded locket. The face of a woman with eyes full of sorrow. "Memories," Callan said, his voice heavy, "that the dark wood feeds upon." Illyra looked at him, eyes wide with pain and determination. "Then I will give it no more." She raised the mirror high. Its surface shimmered and suddenly expanded, engulfing the pool and the path ahead in brilliant light. The voices faltered and faded, replaced by silence. But the silence was not peaceful, it was expectant. Ahead, a figure stepped from the shadows, a tall man clad in midnight robes, eyes glowing with crimson fire. Malric. He smiled, a cruel, twisted thing. "Welcome, Azalea," he hissed. "I have awaited this moment across centuries. You carry the bloom's power, but can you withstand the darkness within yourself?" Illyra squared her shoulders. "I am not afraid." The forest seemed to hold its breath. Malric raised a hand, and shadows surged forward, vines twisting like serpents, claws scraping at the earth, whispers morphing into screams. But Illyra was ready. Drawing from the depths of her soul, she summoned the light of the moon Azalea. The petals bloomed around her like a radiant shield, casting warmth and hope into the shadowed woods. Callan joined her side, chanting an ancient incantation. Together, their combined power pushed back the darkness, illuminating the path forward. Malric's form flickered, then dissipated into a swirl of black mist, retreating but not defeated. Illyra exhaled, heart pounding. This is only the beginning. Callan nodded, his eyes softening with a mixture of relief and concern. The bloom awakens, but so does the shadow. Your journey will test every part of you. As they pressed onward, the dark wood began to change. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by flickers of dawn light filtering through the leaves. The forest whispered its approval. Illyra knew the path ahead would be fraught with danger, but also discovery of her power, her past, and the legacy she was destined to fulfill. With the mirror glowing softly at her side and Callan's steady presence beside her, she stepped forward into the unknown. After escaping the clutch of the Darkwood's shadows, Illyra and Callan found themselves at the edge of a vast expanse bathed in twilight, the Vale of Dreams. This mysterious realm stretched infinitely, a liminal space where the past and future blurred and the boundary between reality and imagination thinned to a delicate thread. The air was thick with sparkling motes of light like countless fireflies, each carrying a fragment of memory, hope, or forgotten dream. The sky above swirled with ethereal colors, ever shifting like the aurora borealis but infinitely more vivid and alive. Illyra's heart swelled with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The mirror in her satchel thrummed in resonance with the realm, as if urging her forward. Callan broke the silence. The veil is where the soul's deepest truths emerge. It is beautiful, but treacherous. You must keep your wits and your heart clear. As they ventured further, the landscape rippled, and images formed within the mist. Illyra saw moments from her own life, laughter shared with friends long lost, tears shed in lonely nights, flashes of joy and regret mingling like shadows at dusk. Suddenly, the path ahead fractured, revealing multiple shimmering doorways, each promising a glimpse into a different possibility, a different timeline. A voice, gentle yet insistent, echoed softly in the air. Choose wisely, keeper. Each door leads to a truth, but only one reveals the path to the bloom's heart. Illyra hesitated, feeling the weight of choice settle over her. Each doorway whispered promises, fears, or regrets, tugging at her soul. Callan stepped beside her. I will stand with you, no matter which you choose. Taking a deep breath, Illyra reached out and touched the nearest door. The world around her dissolved, and she found herself standing in a familiar meadow, one she had seen in visions and dreams. The moon hung low and silver, casting a serene glow over fields of wildflowers swaying gently in a silent breeze. In the distance, a figure approached, a young woman cloaked in white, her face obscured by shadows. Illyra, the woman called softly, you must remember what you left behind. As the woman drew closer, Illyra's heart clenched. It was herself, but younger, freer, and unburdened. The younger Illyra spoke again, her voice filled with longing. You gave up the bloom's power to protect those you loved. But now, the time has come to reclaim it. Tears welled in Illyra's eyes. I was afraid. The younger version smiled gently. Fear is a shadow, but not the end of the journey. Embrace it, and let it guide you. Suddenly, the meadow dissolved, and Illyra was back before the doors, her resolve hardened. She turned to Callan. The path is clear. I must face the truth I've been running from. Together, they stepped through the chosen door, a gateway shimmering with golden light, and descended into a realm where dreams and memories danced in eternal twilight. What awaited was unknown. But Illyra was no longer just a keeper of the bloom. She was its heart. The golden light faded as Illyra and Callan stepped through the gateway, revealing a realm both familiar and strange, a vast chamber of floating memories suspended in crystalline orbs, each pulsing with a soft glow. This was the nexus of reflection, where souls confronted their truest selves. Illyra's gaze drifted to the countless orbs, each holding moments from her past and possibilities of her future. Among them, one orb shone brighter than the rest, containing a vision of a child holding a delicate flower, the moon Azalea, its petals glowing faintly with a mystic light. As she moved closer, the orb's glow intensified, enveloping her in warmth and gentle whispers of forgotten lullabies. But as the glow reached its peak, a shadow stretched across the chamber, chilling the light. From the darkness emerged Malric, his eyes burning with resentment and hunger for power. Yet, this time, he was different, less a physical threat, more a challenge to her inner strength. "You carry the bloom's light," he hissed, "but do you possess the heart to wield it?" Illyra stood firm, drawing upon the courage growing within her. The bloom is more than power. It is love, sacrifice, and hope. Malric's shadow coiled, striking at the orb, attempting to shatter it. Illyra reacted swiftly, lifting the silver mirror. Its surface reflected not just light, but the bonds she had forged, memories of her grandmother's stories, the trust in Callan's eyes, and the quiet strength of her own spirit. The orb pulsed in response, expanding until it enveloped Malric's shadow. A binding light surged forth, holding him at bay. Callan stepped forward, chanting an ancient incantation learned from the Keeper's scrolls, strengthening the light's hold. Malric struggled, snarling, "This is not over, Alanya." With a final surge, the shadow dissipated into mist, leaving only echoes behind. Illyra exhaled, feeling the weight of the trial. "Each step brings me closer, but the path is still long." Callan smiled softly. "And you will not walk it alone." Together, they turned toward a new doorway shimmering with starlight, leading deeper into the mysteries of Rosemere and the bloom's destiny. The path leading from the nexus of reflection opened before Illyra and Callan as a river of light, pure, radiant, and flowing with the memories and hopes of countless generations. They stepped forward, feeling the pulse of the moon Azalea grow stronger within Illyra's chest, a steady heartbeat that echoed in perfect harmony with the world around them. The conflux itself seemed to hold its breath. Beyond the river, the final threshold loomed, an immense gateway carved from ancient stone and alive with shimmering vines that bore luminescent blossoms. It was the gate of the bloom, the sacred entrance to the heart of Rosemere's magic, where past, present, and future converged. Lyra, the queen of the conflux, appeared beside them, radiant as ever. You have walked a path few dare tread, Azalea, she said, her voice both proud and gentle. Now, it is time to reclaim your legacy not only as keeper but as guardian of the bloom. Azalea nodded, the weight of destiny settling fully upon her. The darkness will not prevail, she whispered. Not while light remains. Callan took her hand, a silent vow passing between them of partnership, strength, and hope. Together, they crossed the threshold. Inside, a vast garden unfolded, the original Rosemere, untouched by time or shadow, where every flower bloomed in eternal splendor and the air shimmered with the purest magic. At its center stood the moon azalea tree, colossal and radiant, its petals casting rainbows of light across the sky. Azalea approached, feeling the bloom's energy surging through her veins. She raised her hands, and the petals responded, blooming wider, releasing waves of healing light that spread across the garden and beyond. Malric's shadow appeared one last time, desperate and furious. You cannot stop what has already begun, he roared. But Azalea stood firm, the mirror glowing with the combined strength of every memory, every promise, every love she had reclaimed. This world is not yours to claim, she said, voice resolute. Light and shadow exist together, but love will always lead. With a brilliant flash, the bloom's light enveloped Malric, transforming his darkness into a gentle dusk, a reminder that even shadows can soften and become part of the whole. The conflux sang with renewed life. Lyra smiled, her form shimmering. You have awakened the bloom, Azalea. Rosemere lives because of you. Azalea turned to Callan, eyes shining with tears and joy. We did this together. He nodded, pulling her into a warm embrace. The garden around them blossomed anew, a symbol of hope and eternal renewal. As the light bathed them, Azalea felt peace, the peace of one who has found her true self, embraced her past, and stepped confidently into the future. The moon azalea's petals danced on the breeze, whispering a promise to all who would listen. In every shadow, there is light, in every ending, a new beginning. And so, the keeper's journey came full circle, a story of courage, memory, and the unbreakable bond between heart and destiny. Title: Moon Azalea, the Keeper of Rosemere. Description: In the mist-shrouded hills of southern England lies Rosemere, a secret realm where ancient magic slumbers beneath blooming azaleas and whispered memories weave the fabric of time. Azalea Rowan, known by her true name Azalea, is drawn into this enchanted world when a mysterious mirror and a fateful encounter awaken dormant powers within her. Guided by the enigmatic Callan and the spectral keeper Lyra, Azalea embarks on a perilous journey through the conflux, the darkwood, and the Vale of Dreams. Along the way, she confronts shadows of betrayal, forgotten memories, and the relentless shadow of Malric, the shattered king bent on reclaiming a stolen throne. As Azalea unravels the secrets of her lineage and embraces the luminous power of the moon Azalea, she must face her deepest fears, reconcile the light and darkness within, and protect the delicate balance between worlds. Moon Azalea, the Keeper of Rosemere, is a sweeping tale of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring strength of hope, a mesmerizing fantasy that explores the ties that bind memory, identity, and destiny.